What is going on, Diesel Nation? We're excited to have you guys with us today on the Diesel Podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube and aren't subscribed, make sure and click the subscribe button, like, comment, let us know what you think about the episode. If there's a particular guest or topic you'd like to have covered, we're always checking comments on YouTube and love to be able to take what you guys suggest and then get them onto future episodes. Today I'm going to be joined by Dan and Heather Clark of Dan's Diesel Performance, and I wanted to know more about how their company started. We're all familiar with Dan's Diesel Performance, see what they do with turbochargers and really cool builds out there. So I wanted to go back to the beginning with them, see how it started, how it grew, how they got into manufacturing, and then also how they run the business as a team. I know there's a lot of shop owners, a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs that listen to the podcast, and it's a really cool dynamic to be able to build, manage it, and grow it. So I'm looking forward to hearing from them, learning about their process. Before we get to it, though, want to remind you guys our friends over at Kershaw Knives have a 20% off site-wide code for you. Use code 23diesel20 at kershaw.kaiusa.com. You get 20% off site-wide. They've got a bunch of cool gear. So if you're in the market for a knife for hunting, fishing, EDC, something around the job site, they've definitely got you covered. 2023 has been a huge year for them with new product releases, and one of the newest are the Duralock models, which the way that the blade opens and closes is super smooth, keeps your fingers away from the blade, and then the blade's also made out of D2 steel. There's different choices for blade shape, also handle sizes, different shapes to it. So if you're in the market, it's a great knife. Definitely make sure head on over to their website, check it out, and use that code for 20% off site-wide. All right, let's get to today's podcast with Dan and Heather Clark, learning more about Dan's Diesel Performance. Dan and Heather, welcome to the Diesel Podcast. I'm really excited to chat with you guys today. I think this is our first episode where I've been able to chat with both of you. And we were talking, beforehand about, a lot of people are always fascinated by the story of companies and how they came to be and your guys' story. And we've never talked about it on the podcast. So I look forward to doing that with you guys today, learning more about Dan's Diesel Performance and your guys' team and how you guys put it all together.
Happy to be here today, and I guess I'll let Dan kind of start on the beginnings of Dan's Diesel here.
Yeah, how did it start?
Well, it really started as a hobby. I was working at a case construction dealer in Rockford, and I always had an interest in diesel pickup trucks, so I got into messing around with my truck. I had a 2005 LOI Duramax, and I started buying parts for that and making it run better. And other friends of mine saw my truck, or they heard it had an exhaust on it, or it scooted down the road pretty good. So they were like, "Oh, can you do it to my truck?" And I said, "Sure." So ordered parts for them and got installed. I usually do that after hours or on the weekends, and I did that for a while. Then I was also doing like repairs to farm tractors and machinery after hours on the weekends as well. And then 2009, I think it was May, when the economy wasn't doing too well, I got laid off from my job at the dealership, and I decided to go into doing the diesel performance stuff full time. So I sent a bunch of text messages out, called some good customers, and said, "Hey, I'm available to do work whenever you need it. So let me know." And at that point in time, it got really busy. So kept on working by myself for the most part for a couple of years, and I hired my first employee in 2011 to help in the shop. And then Heather's always been on my side for this whole deal. So
Yeah, we met in 2009, and at that time, we lived about 2.5 hours apart. So, I would come visit on weekends when I could, kind of think around in the shop with him. And it was around April of 2011 that I actually moved down to Illinois to be with him. And at that time, I kind of built our website, made an online web store, because you could kind of see that like e-commerce was quickly rising in popularity, and that was kind of the way to go. And that's kind of what I worked on, and handling things on the back end. And from there, like we were between truck pulling, we were working in the shop, managing the web store, So we did that for a few more years. And in 2016, we moved off of his parents' farm over to a bigger populated area and kind of upped our shop space. And from there, things really took off.
We went from 850 square foot to 6,000 square foot. And we thought, like, what are we going to do with all this room? And then it didn't take long to fill it. When we put the lifts in and the air compressor and filled the offices, put all our inventory in there, found ourselves we need more space. We picked up a couple more units at this location. So right now we've got like 12,000 square feet here, and then we've got another 4,800 square feet in Roscoe, which is where our dyno's at.
I got a lot of questions for you guys. I'm thinking, I always like to think about our listeners, and they'll ask me things I don't know the answer to, but I'll have a guest on, and there's a few of them I know they're definitely going to want to hear your answer. So if we go back to 2009 and the way the economy was, I remember how it was in 2008, 2009. It was rough. When you decided to make that move, Dan, was there apprehension? Is this going to work? What were you thinking at the time from, working at where you worked, you got laid off, and then I'm going to start this company? Was it scary? Was there a lot of unknowns right when you first started?
Well, for me, I guess it was a little easier because I already had business kind of established. I was doing DMAX Diesel Performance. Before that, it was DMAX Ag Repair, working on tractors. But I had the DMAX Diesel Performance name registered and all that with the state, and so that was already going. But I was just doing it as like a part-time, side job deal. So getting laid off from my main job, working on construction equipment, it was an easy transition. I knew I either had to work hard at the business or I had to find another job. The out of work list for the union was pretty big, and I was only 21 at the time, I think, somewhere in there. And I was pretty low on the totem pole just because of my age and seniority. So I knew that I wouldn't be getting a phone call for a new position anywhere anytime soon. So I just took it day by day and worked on building the business up.
Plus, you've always been a little bit more of the entrepreneurial type of person. You kind of just wanted to do your own thing without kind of being confined. So it kind of gave you that last little bit of motivation, kind of turn it into a full-time thing at that point. So had it not been for that economic collapse at the time, DMAX Diesel might not have come to be.
That's a really good point. Sometimes when I get these messages from their diesel enthusiasts, sometimes it's on the equipment side, sometimes it's on the truck side, but there's this voice they have in their head that says, I want to do this on my own, or I have a vision. I want to do something, but they don't quite know the right time to do it. And sometimes the economy or situations just kind of force it. And I think what you mentioned, Dan, about being, you didn't just jump in. So you had customers, you had things you were doing prior. It might have been part-time, but you had already kind of started that process. So when it came, it was probably like, all right, I'm ready to do it. I've already kind of laid the groundwork for it, and started, which I think is important for anyone who's thinking of that. It doesn't even have to be diesel. It could be business, any sort of business, thinks about that particular side. And the question I had for you, Heather, is when you moved there, were you familiar with trucks? Was it like a whole new world, or what was it like acclimating to? You're building a website, there's these trucks, there's these parts, everything that was going on at the beginning of it.
I mean, I wasn't unfamiliar. I grew up farming, dairy farming in Wisconsin, of course. And, I'd always been around diesel trucks, tractors, and stuff like that. I'd actually went to college for the same thing as Dan, working on farm machinery. So I never anticipated I would end up in an industry working on trucks, but I was very familiar with that and obviously how things work and parts. So for him, it was, kind of a handy asset having, your girlfriend knowledgeable and things and being able to make that website while he was in the shop working. So he didn't have to focus on things on the other side. So every now and then I would come in and, rent with them when I could in the early days. And then as we got busy and, hired our first employee, then I kind of got to step out of that and just focus just on the website.
There's the other part of this that really interests me is the growth, because when I think of Dan's Diesel Performance, it's been like this for years. It's a national brand. People know about you guys all over the country. Was that really hard to establish a national brand, or how did it grow from where you guys are at into being national, where people call you from all over the country, maybe even outside the United States, for parts and upgrades and things like that? What was that process like?
Oh, it just kind of grew a little bit over time. We had a pretty big presence on Facebook and Instagram, and with our pull trucks, we always were posting videos and of that. And it's a lot of people heard about us on social media and came to us for bolt-on parts and stuff. And I'd say probably around 2014, 2015 is when we started manufacturing some of our own stuff in-house. And when we moved to our location in Chesley Park, that's when we really started building a lot more turbochargers. And we got into fuel injectors, fabrication, a lot of transmission stuff. We've been doing transmissions for a long time, but so getting a lot more product out there, getting a lot more recognition, started to become a household name at this point.
Yeah, I'd say a lot of that attributed in the early days when Facebook just started to allow businesses to create their own pages. We kind of capitalized that right away when that first became a thing. So back then, people could follow you pretty easily. Yeah. And it was before they made you pay to advertise, so people would actually see what you would post. So our content was much more visible. So it was easy to kind of build that brand nationally in the early days than, like, say, what it would be now. You'd have to do things like, tenfold or 20-fold to even compete to how easy it was to do that back then. And we also pulled with NHRDA back in the day. So, we were out in Montana, we were in Texas. So as far as getting the trucks out there, we were putting ourselves out there visibly for people to see how our vehicles would perform.
We also had a mobile chassis dyno. We went around to a lot of events, NHRDA and some other events that we were privately scheduled for. And we had some pretty big names on there. We had John Baca's truck on there, and Levon Miller,
Dimitri
on there, a few other big power trucks. So, those videos or all that stuff would just get shared on Facebook, YouTube, and our name would come along with it. Hit some big numbers on Dan's Diesel Performance of Dyno today, and that's another way we acquired some recognition.
So the visibility is what seems to be really key, because you guys, I think, seizing the opportunity is what was so important. And if, like, Facebook back then, it was way easier to have people see you, but that wasn't just it. It was traveling, it was investing the time, the effort, going to these things, networking with people, and being able to just showcase, because I find that's where a lot of the younger people kind of get stuck. And it could be with just showcasing their truck, it could be their welding business, their diesel performance business, whatever it might be, is they have this great idea, they have a lot of talent, but if nobody knows about it, how do they know you do it? How do you right. showcase it? So you guys put in that effort and that time, and I was always really curious how you guys, grew it to that point. And like social media, you guys have an awesome social media page. Like, I see the videos, a lot of them, there's some humor in them. There's some things that are really true. Like, that sticks with me. I see it. And, one of them that I remember was, I think it was a set of heads, or taking something off of a DMAX head. And it was like, like the guy who's cheaper, and it was a wire brush and something like stuff like that, like, sticks out to me. And I think, okay, ATS Diesel Performance. Like, it's just, there's so many ways and so many opportunities to be able to showcase, and you guys have done a really, really fantastic job with it. With the manufacturing, that's what another thing I was really curious about is that seems like a huge jump to go from, installing, working, servicing, maintaining trucks to now you're going to make a turbocharger. You're going to do injectors. You're going to build transmissions. What was it like to become a manufacturer at this time or during that process of it?
Oh, I mean, a lot of it was just looking at what products do we move a lot of, and let's say turbochargers, for example. Uh, turbos were pretty popular, and there's a lot of different brands to go with at the time. And I was looking at it as well. These companies, all they're doing is taking a good Ford turbocharger, taking it apart, cleaning it, machining the exhaust housing, the compressor cover, and whatnot, putting larger turbine compressor wheel in it, and balancing it, putting it together, and selling it as a complete unit. And I was looking at what would it cost to do this, and what is the price that it would sell for. And then you look at what you make selling somebody else's product, and it was like, okay, well, I can get hooked up with a CNC shop to cut exhaust housings and our compressor covers. I can source the parts, and we can do this. So that's what we basically did to get started. And when we moved into our shop here in Chester Park, I made the investment into a CNC lathe and a CNC mill, software to write the programs to machine these housings and all the other parts. So for a lot more of that work in the house. And we have a dyno to back up what our turbochargers will do. Same thing for fuel injectors. We invested in the equipment to be able to make our own injector nozzles and test and balance and calibrate the injectors.
Yeah, I'd say as the company grew, Dan used to like wrenching more when he was younger, but as the company grew, he started to enjoy more of the manufacturing side of things. He liked developing products, like writing programs and things like that. So it was pretty easy for him to want to make new products or make products better, because that's kind of then what's driven him the last few years as the company goes.
And probably, I think being able to have all those different parts that you make, you can tailor them towards a specific use or power level, whatever engine it might be. You're not necessarily dependent on a company offering something. Maybe you didn't like how it ran. Maybe you wanted something a little bit different. Well, now you can do it. You can make it. So somebody comes to you with an LB7 or a 5.9 or whatever truck it might be, you have that ultimate control to be able to really give them a complete solution between all the different options that you have for truck upgrades.
Yeah, we can get custom with some stuff. Even in the R&D process, when it comes to like turbos or injectors, if we build a product and we're selling a lot of it, I always look at, okay, it's running good, it's making good power, but is there anything more that we can do to get a little bit more out of it? A prime example is our LOI shop truck. We built a set of 150% over 6-hole injectors for it. We ran on the dyno, and it ran good, but it was a little under what I was expecting the horsepower to be. So we pulled those injectors out. We made a set of 7-hole nozzles for those injectors, put it all back together, and maybe picked up like 40 horse on a dyno. And you look at that, like if you're working with a company, I can't make names, but let's say I was purchasing these injectors from another company, I'd be stuck with that low expectation, or below expectation. But the fact that we were able to pull them out and modify them here in house, put them back on the dyno, and actually saw a gain, well, then the truck's going to run better, and it also changes how we make the product in the future. So now, instead of a 6-hole injector, now we're putting 7-hole injectors on DMAXs. it depends on the application, of course, but that's really cool stuff.
Have you guys found
Being a
that?
manufacturer.
Have you guys found from the start to 2023 that a diesel truck, I'd say enthusiast, or maybe even just a diesel truck owner, that they're more demanding with what they want? And I mean that in the sense of when I think back to my journey in diesel, it was like, I don't know, 2008, 9, 10. It was like, I just want the most power I can get. I don't really care if I have to make sacrifices for drivability or all these other things. As long as I can get that power number or run that time at the track, I'm cool with it. Whereas now they're much more demanding, or they expect more with, I want this to idle smooth. I want it to sound this way. I want the fuel economy this way, or whatever it might be. Has that been something you guys have noticed over the years?
Yeah, I'd say that people these days are more picky about how their trucks run, and I think the parts and the tuning and all that stuff's available to make a truck run really good, especially when we're trying to meet emission standards and stuff like that. But yeah, it seemed like 10 years ago, you just bolted on whatever you could get, and the truck would run. It would make power, but it'd also be smoky, and maybe mileage was really poor, but it hit that big number in the dyno, so that's all you really cared about. But now these trucks have gotten to the point where they're expensive, so they want to have a truck that drives nice, makes the power they want. They can still use it for daily driving or use it for work. So yeah, the parts really have to tailor to what the customer wants.
Yeah, I'd say people are more particular. They want to get more bang for their buck than you used to. I mean, you used to be able to just slap like a box tuner on a truck and you'd be just as happy as could be to drive around. But now people want files that are customized to their vehicles. Like Dan said, they want it to run the very best. And then, you have your handful of people like that are a little bit more entitled. They, think they might deserve more, even though you've given them the very best of what you can offer. They think there's still more on the table. And then, and the rare occasion, like 1 out of maybe every 1,000 customers will still send an email to try to get a smoker Loewen tune. I'm like, it's not 2008, my guy. It's time to move on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the other thing is like, as far as like parts go, I think Amazon has kind of messed up the industry in some way. If a customer purchases a part and maybe it doesn't meet their expectations, or maybe they messed up the install, or they just abused the product and broke it, they think that they can just send it right back to us and then they're going to get a refund. And it's like, no, that's not how this works. There's a warranty process we have to deal with, or they'll just want to return it and get a refund. If you bought it and installed it, it's yours. So if there's a problem, let's work with it on the warranty side. But our descriptions were accurate. I think you knew exactly what you were buying. So let's make it work for you. But yeah, there's entitlement.
Do you guys find that that they're more educated than they used to be? Like the podcast you guys have done with us, the videos you guys produce, the content that's on the website. Do you find that they know more? Like, do they call you and say, I want this, particular turbo because I read the description on the website? Or the reason I asked that is when I got into this, I didn't know anything. It was like I'd go on a forum and some guy would have like, oh, I run this Smarty with this, thing, and I change this torque. And nobody really kind of knew, other than, if they were racing or they had a dyno number to show you. But something we try to do with the podcast, and what I love about the ones that you guys do with us, is they're very educational, and I just hope people hear the information, the expertise, all the experience you guys have, and then they're asking you guys the right questions when they call in.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good information out there if they go and look for it. As I've gone through posts on Facebook, guys that say the trucks run this way, or the truck's doing that. There's a lot of bad information out there too. And whether it's on purpose, like they're trolling, or you got other people that don't know the right answer. So yeah, you got to be careful about where you get your information from. If you're wanting to do something to your truck, make some more power or better fuel economy or whatever, it's best to call the company that sells them every day or manufactures them and ask their sales team, what do you recommend for me? Asking the Facebook mechanics probably not going to get you where you want to be.
Yeah, but there are people that will read, like on the web store, for an example, we put in the description, like what the use for the product should be limited to. So say this is strictly for street driving, don't be toting a fifth wheel camper if you're, say, with our 68 drop-in turbo. And you'll get the guys that'll order them online, they must not have read the description. They just saw 68 in their mind and thought big power, and they go and slap it on. And then when they're toting their fifth wheel camper, they're calling because they're mad because they have high EGTs, but they still have like stock injectors in the truck. And so, we have to ask them, like, did you read the description? We specifically state you shouldn't use this product for this purpose. And then a lot of times they'll get defensive about it. And like, we put this there for a reason to assure like that you're not going to be upset. You're going to be happy with the product. You're getting the correct product. So I say we deal with that more now than we ever used to. Most people, if they would call and ask for recommendations, they would take that recommendation pretty seriously or actually read before purchasing. But a lot of people, I think, and like Dan kind of touched on, kind of like Amazon, they see this product, like, oh, well, I want this. So they order it without really diving too much into it.
And if they don't have, they're not getting out of the product what they want, then they just send it back to Amazon, and Amazon sticks to the seller. So Amazon's kind of ruined it for a lot of industries.
Yeah.
There was somebody a while ago, they needed a turbo. I think it was for I don't remember if it was for a 6-liter or 7.3. And I said, hey, you should, call Dan's Diesel or, just don't just buy this thing off Amazon. And they ended up buying it from Amazon and they have an issue. And they're like, hey, do you know anyone I can call to like tech this and figure it out? And I'm like, call Amazon, man. I told you to buy it from a place. Like, that's part of it too, that for anyone that's new and hasn't upgraded their truck or done anything like that, it's not just the price of the product you're paying for. You're also paying for the expertise and the support. And that's something to really keep in mind with anything, whether it's turbo injectors, anything to do with the truck is, think of how much experience you guys both have, how much experience you have, Dan, with working on vehicles and the R&D and the manufacturing process and the team that you have. If you have an issue or you have a question, you just call a number, send an email. Amazon, you're not getting that, or other places like that. You're not getting that support. So that's something I always tell people that are new to diesel trucks or new to upgrading them is you got to think about that particular side of it.
Yeah. And we're only a small business too. There's 14 of us in our company. So like when you're working with us, you'll know us on a name-to-name basis. If you call us a few months down the road, and you'll be like, oh, hey, how's it going? How's the truck been running? If you call Amazon 3 months down the road, they're gonna be like, oh, what did you buy? Like, who are you?
What's your order number?
So, yeah, bear that in mind. We always like to hear from our return customers and seeing how things are going for them.
The other question I had, and I was saving this one kind of for the end, but I think it's really important, it was maybe 5 years ago or 6 years ago, I did an episode with, I don't remember who it was with, or I just remember talking about business and somebody who started a diesel shop. I think it was in Texas or Arizona or something. And this guy had sent a message and he said, hey, my wife and I are taking a road trip. We just listened to this episode. We were really inspired by what the guest was talking about. And I've been thinking about leaving my job for a long time. I love diesel trucks. I love working on them. And I just pulled over the side of the road. We talked for a few minutes and we're like, we're going to do this. We're going to start a business. And that was one of the most powerful moments for me, knowing what somebody heard is inspiring a life change. And I wanted to ask you guys, how do you do it as a team? How do you guys work together, balance everything? Because I find that happens a lot is if somebody will start a business, they want to do it, their wife's joining them. And I have no experience with that. I don't know what to tell them. I don't know how it works. I don't know what tips are. So I wanted to ask you guys, how do you do that? How do you manage all that?
I'd say first and foremost is you have to be able to work well together before you ever start a business. I'm saying just like within your household, like, being able to take different tasks. And if you can handle that kind of stuff at home together, fine. Then maybe look into the business aspect. Like there's things he likes to do that maybe I don't like to do. So that's where he's at. Or like the book work, he doesn't like book work in any capacity, or dealing with taxes and, or the government, that kind of stuff. So that's where, I come in. So, if you're going to go into the business world, understand what your strengths and weaknesses are, figure out like what part of the business one of you wants to handle, why another one handles another aspect, and then come together on certain things, work together. And when you're outside of the company, try to step away from the business every now and then to kind of give yourself a little refresher. You have to understand, if you have a family, you need to make time for your family. When you're first starting a business, you're going to have a lot of input. You're going to have a lot of time that you're going to miss with your friends, your family. So go into it kind of expecting that there's going to be a lot of long nights, missed weekends. You're going to have to make a lot of sacrifices in the early days. So if you can navigate through that and kind of come out when you're finally starting to generate a little bit of a profit in your company, I think you'll do all right. But the most important thing is, if you're going to start a business, just make sure it's with someone you actually like spending time with too. Random times of the day, maybe he'll have discovered something, whether he's testing injectors or making like a new set of nozzles, and he'll be excited and he wants to come in and tell me about it, before we've even like put him into a truck, like, oh, look what I'm doing here, and kind of give a little bit of feedback, and then, he's back out again.
I'd say the other thing is, as far as building a business, there can only be one owner, one captain, one chief, however you want to look at it. And that way that there's one sole decision maker, and that's the person that's going to be calling the shots. So there's no confrontations between two different partners. Like, oh, I think we should do it this way. Well, we should do it that way. It's like, no, this is the one that makes the calls, and this is the route we're going to go. So those decisions are what's going to make or break the company, I suppose.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I was pretty upfront, like, you started this is your baby. And like, I'll offer opinions, but I want you to have the final say in whatever the company does.
I think that's a really good point, and that I guess it sort of opened up another question for me, which is about the leadership side of it. Because sometimes it might not be a husband and wife, it might be two friends that want to start it, and one builds transmissions, one does something else. And there's so many pitfalls and so many stories that you can read or hear about where that conflict just ends up destroying the business, itself. How do you take, as a leader, say constructive criticism, or say you're really excited about a part, Dan, and you spent 3 weeks working on it, and somebody says, this is not the right time to do it, like, this is what's hot right now, we need to work on this. Like, how do you handle that? How do you incorporate it? How do you make business decisions with that in mind?
I probably do that to you the most, honestly. But we're pretty good about that, like when it comes whether decision making or releasing a product, and kind of run it by me. And like, I might agree with it, I might disagree. Like, we've got this going on right now, we shouldn't, like let's say we're marketing something and it's steaming along pretty good, so like, let's not mess with the flow of this, wait a little bit. Or driving the shop truck, one day I had to go to like a doctor's appointment. I took the shop truck, and there's something about it wasn't like, didn't feel good to me when I was driving. And I came back, I'm like, man, this thing kind of drives like shit, to be honest with you. And he kind of just looked at me like a little bit offended. And I'm like, well, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm like, it wasn't enjoyable really driving it. So then, they looked into it and found a few little issues, and that addressed. So like, you have to, I'm not gonna criticize something unless something isn't sitting right with me, and you have to be able to take it in stride. Like if you can take that criticism and not get mad about it, be like, okay, I see where you're coming from. Let's see how we can fix this. Like that's the day you're actually going to grow as a business owner or someone within a business. Like that's when you're going to get better as a person too. Like if you can't take criticism, you're never going to expand. You're never going to grow. You're going to plateau within your company. And Dan's also pretty good about taking criticism and kind of going with it, and improving upon things as well.
So it's really a two-way street in the sense of, Dan, you have someone to trust and get their feedback from, and then Heather, you feel comfortable enough to say, this truck doesn't run right. Like this thing sucked to drive. Something's wrong with it. And being able to work together to make those decisions. Or I'm sure there's times, Dan, where you're like, this is going to work. People are going to love it. I know we need to do it. It might not be the right time, but this is the perfect time. And Heather, you probably say, okay, I trust you to, this is, your instinct, the market, what people want, let's just do it. So I think that's the biggest takeaway I have from the advice that you guys gave, is just being able to work together, in probably so many capacities, and then just translates into business where you guys can make joint decisions and prioritize things and all that sort of stuff. So I think that's really going to help people, because that's one thing for years people ask, well, how do I do it? How do I start it? How do I balance all these things? I don't know how to tell you, but let me talk to someone.
You got to learn how to not take those things like personal, when you're working together. It's, outside of the company, maybe there's going to be something snarky you're going to say to one another, but, let's say maybe I'm not doing something that I'm supposed to be doing. If he's like, hey, you're supposed to be doing this, I need you to get this done. Like, don't get mad about it. Be like, you're right, I apologize. And then, get on the task that you're supposed to be completing. Like, you can't get upset about those things. You have to be a business when you're within the business. You have to stay kind of on track.
A question I have for you guys to help me with something is, Heather, you talked about being able to turn off or leave kind of work at work and have the time outside. I find that so hard for myself, because I get ideas at 8 at night, 11 at night, or I turn on my computer and I'm like, oh, let me look at this, or let me look at these analytics, or whatever it might be. I find it so hard to turn it off. What are some tips or some things you would tell me, or lots of us? We don't even have to be in diesel or even work on trucks or be in the diesel performance industry at all to struggle with this. What are some things you guys do to be able to turn it off when you need to turn it off and focus on other things?
Well, we work outside of work. We also farm, in 2 different places. So outside of work, that's usually what we're doing. We're farming. So it kind of just gives us a break outside of the building to be able to go be outside and do the thing we grew up doing, kind of keep us grounded a little bit. And every now and then, go camping, go on a vacation, maybe once or twice a year if we're lucky. But yeah, there's a lot of times we're guilty of it. If we're just sitting at home and he's got a really cool idea, he's thought of, and he wants to talk about it. But when you're self-employed, it is inevitable to an extent. You're going to talk about work sometimes. But as we've gotten older, it's been a little bit better outside of work. But yeah, usually we have other hobbies we're doing, or farming, just something to kind of give your brain a break from your everyday work schedule.
What are some things that you're working on, Dan, for either new products or updates or different things you guys are doing at Dan's Diesel Performance?
Well, we're working on some improvements to turbochargers. Looking right now, our biggest one is a 68.0. We want to make something a little bit bigger for those work stock trucks. We made a 72 millimeter drop in for Heather's every 7 truck, and that thing's been doing very well. So I think hopefully we'll be able to come out with that somewhat soon. And the same thing in the VGT line. We want to make a larger turbo for those. Offering the drop-ins for the L5Ps. Those are getting really close. That's been a slow process, making sure that everything's right and going to run the way we want to, with different turbine design and vanes and all that stuff. So I'll be getting into some 6.7 Cummins turbos here. That's been one of the things to do. And this is expanding our injector offerings and possibly getting into stroker CP3 pumps, another thing that we wanted to do. So all sorts of stuff.
Are the L5Ps taken off a bit? I hear more about them now and see people either doing stuff or wanting to do stuff with them than I did, a few years back. So has the aftermarket caught up a bit where?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's catching on. I mean, these trucks are starting to get more affordable. We saw this in the LML platform as they started getting older, where people are starting to buy them and modify them. Instead of buying a brand new truck that comes with 450 horsepower, well, buy a little bit older one that has a lot of the same features and soup it up a little bit. Yeah, the L5P market's definitely taken off, especially since tuning's been available from HP and whatnot over the last couple of years. Yeah, injectors, transmissions, all sorts of stuff available for those.
With the, I was going to ask you just a quick question about the 10-speed Allison. For those customers or people that do contact you guys, do you think that's going to be a transmission that has some potential in the future to hold some power? Or what are your thoughts on it? I don't know very much about it, and I barely covered it.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot available as far as parts for those yet. I know there's a couple trans companies like Randy's and DMAX that are working on them. We haven't had one apart yet here. I've seen one apart at our shop, but there's not really a whole lot of performance parts available for them yet. I think one of the big things that was holding them up was transmission tuning. So now that that's been cracked and mapped out, I think messing with pressures and shift schedule, stuff like that, it's going to help those things live and put those performance parts in there and up the lane pressure. I think it's going to help those transmissions live quite successfully.
That'll definitely be cool because I love the styling of those trucks and they're just, I really like them. And I've sort of, just, I think a lot of people do, and they're just waiting for things to kind of catch up so they can jump into one.
Yeah, so we have a 2020 and a 22 high countries. And, I mean, love driving them. I mean, both of them, they just have Banks Derringers on there. And they shift real nice. The gear ratio jump is a lot closer. They don't have that big RPM drop every time it would shift, especially pulling the camper, or pulling the goosenecks to the truck poles. They're very pleasurable to drive.
Yeah, and they're both still intact too. And the one has 65,000, I think, on the 20.
Yeah.
And we have 18,000 on the other one, and they both ran very well. We had a deck heater on the 20.
Yeah.
Crapped out, but that was under warranty. But other than that, both trucks have been very good trucks. Probably my favorite truck to drive out of all the generations.
Yeah, we got Spunk and Quiet.
Yeah.
As you get older, the loud truck scene is kind of dying off as far as what you want.
Well, and you appreciate those little creature comforts when it's 95 degrees and you have leather seats. You can turn on the little air conditioned seat button.
Yeah,
that's quite nice. That's nice.
Oh, I'm right there with you guys. I don't know when I changed, but like I used to like them loud and everything else, and now I'm like, I just want it quiet. I want to hit that button and fill the AC, and my steering wheel's heated up in the wintertime. I love this. Oh wait, let me look at the 12-inch LCD screen in front of me and everything else. Like, it's a really nice what they have in them. And I'm sure there's questions that I didn't ask you guys about the truck parts or just anything like that. What's a great way for people to be able to reach out to ATS Diesel Performance, connect with you guys, or just follow and see what you guys are doing and parts and trucks you guys are building?
Well, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We're always posting stuff on there. We do have a YouTube channel. We've uploaded some videos in the past. We're hoping to get some more content on there going forward.
Or call us, good old-fashioned phone calls.
Yep. Yeah, give us a call, shoot us an email, info@dansdieselperformance.com. A lot of different ways to get a hold of us, but if you got questions about your truck and what you can do with it, just give us a call, and one of the guys will be happy to take care of you.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate you guys chatting with me today and talking about some things that are really important, not just for business, but then, like also personally with balancing our time and how you guys grew ATS Diesel Performance. It's really cool to hear the story, and there's a lot of value and a lot of tips that you guys have. So I appreciate you chatting with me today. I know you guys are busy and have a lot going on, but I look forward to seeing what you guys continue to do. I definitely would love to do this again, sit down, chat with you guys, maybe take some audience questions that they might have for you guys, and just kind of not prepare you, but just throw them at you and and get them answered. So I appreciate you guys chatting with me today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, thanks for having us.
Don't forget, Diesel fans, make sure and head on over to kershaw.kaiusa.com. Use code 23diesel20 for 20% off site-wide. It's a great way to save some money, get some really cool gear. So if you need a knife for hunting, fishing, EDC, something around the job site, they've definitely got you covered. One of their newest models in 2023 are the Duralock models, which the blade's made out of D2 steel. It's got a really smooth opening mechanism to open and close it, keeps your fingers away from the blades when you do it. So definitely make sure head on over, check them out. If you're in the market, use that discount code for 20% off. Also want to give a shout out to some of our Patreon supporters: Tyler Loewen at 23 Diesel, J. Cole John, all of our other Patreon supporters, all of you who subscribe on YouTube and podcast apps, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We appreciate all your support here in year 7 of the Diesel Podcast, and look forward to bringing you more of the content that you want to hear in 2023. Until next time, keep the shiny side up.